Friday, and it's Talk to a Farmer Friday. And my guest today is Robert Van Hofwegen, and he just got done giving a presentation to the Agribusiness Council here at the Parrot Club. So we're at the SRP Parrot Club, which is their center for training. And I asked for a special room, and they gave us one. But I bet this isn't even more than, what, 250 square feet?
It's small, but it'll work.
But it'll work, and we won't have any interruptions. There's no way we could have done it. There was a crowd at least of, I don't know, I think you were speaking to maybe 500 people?
I'm not sure.
It was pretty decent size.
It was full.
But if you've ever been to the Parrot Club, you know what I'm talking about. We're in Tempe. This is right off Scottsdale Road on Centennial Drive. And thank you SRP for hosting us. But every Friday, except for those times when we would decide not to have one because of the holidays or something, or Julie takes a vacation. But we're trying to talk to our farmers and ranchers. So obviously, as you can tell, we're not on the farm, but we have been to the farm, Paloma Dairy, before, in the Gila Dene Basin. And I kind of want to talk about water, how hopeful you are about the future, all those fun things. By the way, Robert's been very responsible because he just gave a big presentation and now he's talking to me. So I'm going to try to make this fun.
I'll do my best.
You'll do your best. And the other thing I want to say before we get to the interview, I love the Van Hofwegen family. Hello, everyone, and any of those that might be watching this later, because I think you guys, is there 4 or 5 brothers?
There's 4. I'm the oldest of 4.
Okay, you're the oldest of 4. And I think I've had, is it Ari?
Yes, Ari's one.
On Rosie on the House, and I kind of paired, he was one of my guests, Ari Van Hofwegen, and I paired him with, and you guys I know grow alfalfa on your farm, but anyway, that was on the radio and Rosie on the House, and I always learn so much from all of you when I get to visit with you. And again, this is a representation of our Arizona agriculture, specifically the dairy industry. So Paloma Dairy, you dairy.
Correct.
And then you also grow a lot of your own feed.
We do. We grow as much as we can. Not all of our own crops, but a large percentage of it.
It's not perfectly closed loop, but from beginning to end in that whole dairy cycle, the feed, supply, and production cycle. Okay, so this is my first question.
Okay.
According to the USDA Census of Ag, Maricopa, Pinal, and Yuma, I want to read this because this number is so fascinating to me. Those 3 counties fall in the top 40 counties in ag productivity across the United States. Considering there are more than 3,000 counties, that's a pat on the back for all our Maricopa County farmers, you being one of them. But the question I have for you, we're highlighting the USDA Census of Ag because it was released for the latest census was released in February. Why I want to highlight it for you is what makes the Gila Bend area in Maricopa County, one of those counties in that top 40, what makes Gila Bend so special? Where you farm?
Well, to begin with, just generally, Arizona agriculture is diverse, and we benefit from the arid climate. Because it's warm, and we get, in normal years, we get timely rains, but they're in certain seasons. So it gives us a large window to grow a large variety of crops, and to do so making good yields, and more importantly, high quality production. So whether it's produce or grapes or alfalfa, corn, cotton, we are known for making high quality products. Gila Bend is just a good example of that. We have a large number of dairies in our district or in our area. Almost 20% of Arizona's dairy production is in our basin.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's a little bit less than that, but just for numbers' sake. So our ability to grow high quality forage for the dairies allows them to make high quality milk and milk products for Arizonans.
And you're a generational farmer. You guys have been in the dairy business for how long?
Grandpa came to Arizona in 1959, started the first time, and my dad got married and started his farm in 1979.
And like you said, there's 4 brothers.
And there's 4 brothers. We all work together. I do less of the on dairy and farm these days. Just
They're
because
making you give presentations and
I'm doing things like this, and I also run an irrigation district and a power district. But it's all in furtherance of our goal, which is to be sustainable and to be able to stay in this industry. Farming is hard. It is
Yeah.
not an easy profession.
It's not for the faint of heart.
And just the hard work, but also the economics of it is very challenging.
Yeah.
It's very low margins.
Yeah. And so it also makes me think of something that you taught me and told me about earlier. We used it on our social media channels, that the neat thing about the Gila Bend Basin is river flow recharges. So for the uninitiated, for myself included, if I had to get up there and talk about that, I know I would get it wrong. Okay. What exactly does that mean?
So recharge, or the refilling of the aquifer, can be done many ways. In different parts of the state, or in different aquifers, they'll have what they call injection wells, where they literally pump clean water back into the aquifer to store it. It's like an underground lake. And so they're able to store water down there. But the natural way, the way nature recharges aquifers, is typically through rivers or streams. And so when water runs down rivers or streams, it is absorbed into that stream bed, and that water, we call it percolate, but it works its way down into the lower aquifers. So every soil is different, every stream's different, but in Gila Bend, we have the Gila River running through our basin.
The river runs through it.
It does, and it makes a really hard corner, and that's why it's called Gila Bend. It's not super clever, but it's applicable. And the thing about our aquifer and our riverbed is that it's very porous. So the material that makes up our riverbed is a lot of sand and rock.
Okay.
And so instead of clays and other layers that are going to slow the water penetration down, ours doesn't have much of that, especially in the riverbed. And so that allows the water, as it's coming through, to work its way into the aquifer. And in about half of our basin, that happens really quickly. We'll see recharges with just moderate flows down the river, because we don't get regular flows. They're just when the storm water releases come. But it's significant. I mean, we'll see 20 to 70 feet of recharge.
Really? If the water is flowing down Gila River.
And only for a couple months. We only need it for a couple months.
Oh, wow.
Some of the data I've seen shows that about 30 to 40% of the water that enters our basin will recharge into the basin if there's room for it to go. So like if we had river runs every year, at some point the aquifer could fill up, and it's not going to obviously recharge. There's no room in the bottle to put more water.
Okay,
but if it's been drawn down some, which we're dealing with that challenge right now, we've had 25 years of a prolonged drought, and we haven't had many opportunities to recharge. So any bit of water that comes down the river, we see a lot of it go into the aquifer, and we see it in our water table within a year or two.
And again, to just reemphasize what's so cool about Gila Bend, then, because it's so porous, you've got the sand, you've got rocks, you're not dealing with a layer of clay. When we have floods, or there has to be some release in the river, which we haven't been having because of drought, it's immediately going to refill that basin for you guys.
It does.
And so you guys have to have a river celebration every time you see it flowing.
It is. It's very important. I mean, my personal family, we have some farm ground that's down in the river bottom, and so it's susceptible to flooding.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. We love to see the water coming, but we also kind of cross our fingers and hope that it doesn't destroy part of our farm. And at the same time, ultimately, we understand that it's needed. It's
right.
We just deal with it. And so we've dealt with it a few times over the course of owning that farm, and ultimately, it's a blessing when water flows. Yes.
That's awesome. So pausing for station identification. This is Julie Murphy with Arizona Farm Bureau, and this is our Talk to a Farmer Friday. If you have a question, certainly post it. Either myself or Robert can answer it. If you have a specific Farm Bureau question, I can probably answer it. But if it's about the Gila Bend Basin, Robert can answer it, because
I'll try.
He'll try, because you are also the chair of the Paloma Irrigation District?
I'm the district manager.
District manager.
Yes.
Okay. So again, that's one of those other responsibilities that kind of causes you to pivot a little bit more toward that versus the other three brothers that are helping with the farm.
Correct.
Okay. So, and we mentioned earlier that you're a generational farm family, and you've also been involved in the irrigation district. We just mentioned that. But what has been most impressed upon you over the years coming from a farm family when it comes to agriculture in our state in general, whether that's, and you can speak to more of the water issue if you want, or if it's just more about, what did your dad say to you when you were a little boy? So what's been impressed upon you the most?
The best thing about growing up in a farm family has just been the time I get to spend with family, both my immediate family and then extended family. I lived right next to my grandma and grandpa growing up. My uncles and aunts were up and down the road. We had what we called coffee time.
Awesome.
Most days around 10 or 10:30, we'd get together with my grandpa and my uncles, and they would talk about life and work problems and share a cup of coffee. And it's always been a close family. Comes with challenges when you're working with a family that close, but overall a huge blessing. But there's also been a lot of change I'm 44 this year, I guess. And, a lot of things have changed. Arizona has seen tremendous growth, and that's come some on farm ground, some not on farm ground. There's some controversy over that, at least from my opinion, on where they're getting the water. I think development has been a good thing in that it has provided more opportunities for us to sell our products, and to also give opportunities for those farms and families that want to retire, a way to sell out, and on top of that, there's water conservation that can be had along with that. So agriculture in Arizona is special, as you were saying in the first question. We provide a lot of high quality and a lot of good food and fiber for our country, and specifically for Arizonans. But everybody wants to live here because for all the reasons why we love it.
Yeah.
And so things are changing, and I don't think that's going to slow down.
It's kind of like the farmers discovered it first. They got here, built the infrastructure, and then all of a sudden everybody else is discovering it. As a dairy farmer, what's your take on the checkerboard shifts of ag land and development in Maricopa County? And again, I'm a, private property rights, ownership, but just kind of seeing that and seeing the growth. What do Arizonans need to be aware of as we make this transition? It's kind of like, we love the farms, but I don't want the dairy next to me. I mean, what's your overall take with some of that?
It's unfortunate. There's everybody wants the rural lifestyle, but they don't want the things that come with the rural lifestyle sometimes.
Yeah.
They want the slowness, they want the sense of family and the communities and stuff. But that feeling, that sense of ownership in your community, that they want to be here for, started in these rural communities where it was farms and it was dairies and chickens or sheep, whatever it may be. And that's what it takes to provide healthy and affordable food for our population. But I think the checkerboard nature of it, it's some people might see it as a sad thing. It can be at times when you think about old memories and stuff, but I see it both good and bad. The good is that again, that is where the water is. The water rights are by the ag ground because it has the water rights. Those farmers were here first. And if people want to develop, that is where you're going to get the water, and they're going to probably use less water per acre in whatever they build than what agriculture uses, because you can't grow things without water.
Right.
And so in developing on those grounds, they're also conserving water because less is being used per acre. Now you've extended that availability for longer into the future. And the other reason, like I mentioned earlier, is it provides those that want to retire an ability to do so instead of going somewhere else because we want to save the farm. Well, who wants to do the work? There's the amount of people in the country that farm these days continues to decrease. Some would argue it's because of consolidation. Well, that's part of it because of economics are forcing us to do that to be sustainable. But also, there's not a lot of people that want to do this work. It's hard.
That's true.
And it's 24/7, especially dairy. Dairy never shuts off.
It never shuts off.
So that's the good. The bad is that with some people's perspective is that agriculture is to blame. We use too much water, and we should be eliminated.
I loved what our president, Stephanie Smallhouse with the Arizona Farm Bureau, said one time. She said, if agriculture is not using the majority of water, that means their agriculture must not be that robust. I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but I never thought about it that way. Here in Arizona, 72% of our water is used for agriculture. Well, a lot of people say, well, why do they use so much? Again, I always like to say that 72% of the water we use for agriculture is helping 100% of us, because you and I are living.
Mm-hmm.
We can't live without what the Van Hofwegens are doing with Paloma Dairy. We can't operate with and survive without the abundance of the fruits and vegetables that we enjoy from Maricopa County, Pinal County, and certainly Yuma County. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why the USDA Ag Census showed such robustness with these 3 counties, and why we end up in the top 40 counties across the United States when there's well over 3,000 counties in this country. It says something about the productivity that your family is contributing to, that some of these other farm and ranch families are contributing to. So when we have these conversations, and you're probably talking to our own today, the crowd that you spoke to, maybe the 300 to 500 people, trying to ballpark an estimate there. We're kind of preaching to the choir a little bit, because most of those are in the ag community. But you probably get to talk to people that are not in agriculture. What do you consider the most important conversation that you like to have with people not familiar with farming in Arizona?
The thing that I think it has an impact, but I'm trying to emphasize, is that when you think of agriculture or farms, think of the food that you eat. Don't think of some corporate business, or I don't know, whatever picture you have in your head. Just think about the food that's on your plate at night. And that is what agriculture is. Agriculture is the group of people that are doing the work to provide, to create this food that you purchase. It doesn't come from the store. Walmart doesn't just create it, or whatever grocery store you buy it from. It doesn't just appear on their shelves. A farmer had to grow it, and it's very difficult. But our state has it all, and we can continue to be a key part of the Arizona economy and provide for the Arizonans, for all Arizonans, and we're also willing to be part of the solution. It's just some of the narrative, some of the discussion about, well, Arizona or agriculture uses the most, so we'll just take all the water from them that we need to sustain growth. You're going to run us out of business, and then what are you going to do?
Right, and you're not going to have a local food system, and that's
food inflation will be worse than you see it today.
Worse than we see it today. On water, because that's basically what you talked about today. An excellent presentation, by the way. On water, what's your message to other stakeholders as it relates to ag water?
I'd say that nothing grows without water.
Yeah.
And that seems like a silly thing that I would need to say, but unfortunately, you see it too many times in print or by politicians or certain people making comments that agriculture uses too much. Well, I promise you, water is not cheap when it comes to what we're doing with it and what we're trying to do. So we do everything we can to be as efficient. Back to a comment you made earlier, Yuma County and some of the things they do down there in growing produce and stuff is among the most efficient use of water when growing crops. And we're all, that's a higher value crop. So they've been able to implement that sooner. Those of us who grow other crops, grain crops and stuff, that don't get as much value in the market, it's taken us more time to adopt those things, but we're doing it, especially now as the challenges with water become more severe.
In the dairy industry alone, I want to say that we just heard Craig Caballero, who is the interim CEO for the United Dairymen of Arizona. I want to say he said 40 to 50% of the water in dairies is recycled. And then that recycling process, sometimes the water gets recycled a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you guys have a methane digester on your dairy, and you're actually selling the power or energy that it generates to, is it on the grid, or how are you doing? Are you using...
So what we do, to for your first question on water, we do on anything that the cows don't drink. So or that is used in misters to keep them cool during the summer because cows don't sweat. You may or may not know. And so
I didn't know
we
that.
have to, we get them wet so that as the breezes or the fans are blowing over them, they get that evaporative cooling and it cools them down. So outside of those two uses of water, all the water in the system is captured and recycled, whether we're using it to clean the beds or the alleyways that they walk on. But again, that's collecting the manure, and then we put it into the digester. The digester creates methane gas, which would have happened anyways, but we're capturing it, and then we're cleaning it. And what we do is we inject it in Southwest Gas pipeline.
Way cool.
So it's getting used within the community as renewable natural gas.
Okay. Is there a revenue stream from that at all?
Yes.
Good.
These things are not free. They're
You know
extremely expensive to build.
I think it's great.
And so it's good for the farmer in that it's an alternative source of income to supplement. But we still have to be profitable on the dairy because if we can't make it over there, we're not making any manure to make it work. So it's very connected. One other thing I would say back to a question you asked earlier with my brothers is that we've learned that to be successful, you're going to need to vertically integrate. Originally, we only did dairy back when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then Dad just said, we're going to start mixing our own commodities. We're going to figure out how to save a few dollars. Then we started trucking. Then we started farming.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then we started harvesting and planting. We've added more. Now we have a digester. We keep finding. So as soon as we find that we've got something, we've got to work on the next thing because the world doesn't stop.
No. And
challenges won't stop. And if we want to stay in this industry, and we love it, then we're going to have to be innovators and we're going to have to constantly push the envelope.
It's a good thing there's plenty of kids.
Yeah. And all the brothers have 4 kids as well. So.
And you have 4?
I do. And so it depends on everybody's interest. There's plenty of opportunities to continue.
Oh, good. Joel, do we have anybody that's asked any questions or have any comments for us?
We do have one comment from Christy Wilson Nutrition.
Oh,
she
fun.
says the way farmers use technology is always so impressive, and I would agree.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you, Christy. She's one of our great colleagues. She joins the live very often, and she has actually been a guest like you. Okay. She's a nutritionist graduated from the great university, U of A. This Sun Devil loves her wildcats. But anyway, Christy, thank you. And I so appreciate that. Yeah, the technology, even in just the dairy industry alone, it amazes me. There's so many things that you guys do, even how you individually track and monitor your cows. There's just all sorts of amazing things you do. And on that note, we're almost done. How hopeful are you about the future of Arizona agriculture, considering how we're buffeted with challenges and everybody saying, oh, you use too much water? Well, we have to use a lot because that person that just said that has to eat at least 2 times, if not 3 times a day.
Yeah. With all the challenges, you wouldn't be surprised if I was pessimistic, would you? But I'm not. I'm optimistic. Good. And for a couple of reasons. One, to be a farmer, you have to be an optimist by nature. Mm-hmm. You are putting it all on the line every year when you plant a crop or you buy another heifer or whatever it is, whatever kind of agriculture you're doing. And you're trusting that at the end of the day, there will be enough revenue to sustain you and allow you to try again next year. Yeah. And there are no guarantees between Mother Nature, regulations, just anything that can happen and can go wrong can and often does. And so it's very difficult. So to be in this industry, you're naturally an optimist. So start there. But I'm also optimistic that there are, despite the people, the naysayers, there's a lot of people that value agriculture and that understand its importance. And I don't, there's been a period of time here where we've gotten a lot of negative publicity, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, again, I'm just being too much of an optimist, but I have a sense that things are starting to change. People are starting to question some of the narratives they've been told and to look outside and go, maybe there is more value here than we realized. And so I have faith that in the future, we'll see more of that. And, it may not solve our problems, but I think it's an important step. As somebody was speaking in the conference here earlier, words matter. And so as the narrative eases or changes, that'll have a tremendous impact on our ability to be here in Arizona. I think it'll be a smaller industry because there is only so much water. But it's still going to be very important to Arizona.
That's awesome. And your family is an amazing family, a wonderful family. I've met several of them. I know when you have Van Hofwegen reunions, they're big, so I haven't met everybody. But
and loud.
And loud and opinionated. The ones I know anyway.
Yeah, it's a fun experience.
It is. And just an amazing family, strong faith, dedicated to farming, all good things that you just have to hold tight to. And one of the reasons that I think if you talk to a Van Hofwegen like yourself, you can be very hopeful. So I'm going to end on a fun question. I know we like food, and we're talking about food. I'm always talking about food. We're on a series right now with a bunch of chefs. I just, like last week, interviewed James Porter from the Terra Farm and Manor, and amazing comments. One of the things he said about cooking, I said, what's the best tip to give? He said, good salt, good vinegar, good olive oil, and then quality vegetables, he says, in so many ways sometimes, and then a great glass of milk. He didn't actually say that. I'm adding that. He goes, once you have those baseline good quality ingredients, you can cook just about anything. So I wanted to ask you, do you cook?
I do.
And what's your favorite thing to cook?
May not be a surprise, but I'm usually in charge of the grill, or the smoker, or the griddle. And so through COVID, it became a thing that I made Sunday breakfast.
Cool.
Every Sunday morning, and I do everything short of pancakes because not everybody wants those every time. But it's a big production. It's a lot of work, and they love it. But I enjoy grilling steaks and burgers. My kids like it when I make the burgers myself, and we harvest. We grow animals and harvest them for beef,
awesome.
So we have our own ground beef that in the freezer, and it's fun to do that and share that with the kids and just enjoy their time and their appreciation for all the hard work.
You said you had 4. How old are they?
The oldest is 20, and then 19, 15, and 13.
Okay, so they're telling their dad what they think dad should do.
Yeah. They have no reservations when it comes to telling me what they think.
That's awesome. Robert, I really appreciate this. This has been a fascinating interview as always. And like I said earlier, I always learn from your family.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone that joined us. And for those that will watch this later, if you ever have any questions, just know that we post these, we capture these as videos. We post them on not only on Instagram, on Facebook, and also on Arizona Farm Bureau. So you may not be on Instagram, but we'll take care of you by recording these. Thank you and blessings to everyone.